Before starting the webinar, I'll lay certain ground rules that in my webinars, generally I don't encourage monologue. What is a monologue? I don't encourage monologue at all. What does that mean? What is monologue? Welcome Chandrasekhar, welcome Ashok Vyas. What is a monologue, guys? Absolutely, Sanjana, you're absolutely right. One-way communication, one-way speaking is not allowed. All need to participate. Okay, all need to participate. It is not that I will keep on speaking, I will keep on murmuring something and you will just sit at home, have a cup of tea and eat something and say, Banda kuch bol raha hai, he's saying something, let him say and go off the screen. No, it is going to be a two-way communication. You will respond on the chat button. Okay, and we are going to keep it very interactive and you will go with some incremental knowledge today. Are you excited about it, guys? Write down excited in chat button. Come on, let me see the first step to, eliminate monologue completely. Write excited if you're excited. Excited to learn something new. Excited to learn something new. Write excited. Come on, let me see how many of you are really interested. Good. Very good. I have many of you. Good. So let's start. These are certain ground rules. Okay. Ensure that your internet connection is stable. Yeah. Ensure the phone is on the silent mode. Use headphones if possible. My voice is definitely visible. Chandrasekhar, you will have to check your internet connection once. Okay, and if you really face any tech related issues, just reach out to our tech team or these numbers. Okay. This is something about myself. I don't like to talk much about myself, but I will just give a brief introduction. I have been a global finance controller of listed organizations like TCS, HCL, Citi, eServe, and now I own my own company with a team of 20 people where we focus predominantly on finance transformation of individuals, corporates, and SMEs. I'm a subject matter expert in US GAAP, IFRS, and Ind AS and would have handled more than 80 implementations in my life so far, where we have seen right from complex implementations to getting a company to an IPO in US. Okay, we go right up to that. So there is a quote called "We practice what we preach." Right? What we preach, I just don't talk. I basically practice also, and that is what makes us different from any other player in the market. That is what I would say, because we share all practical experiences, what we have on the consulting. Knowledge is power. Be selfish in acquiring knowledge. Be selfless in giving knowledge. How many of you agree to this? Right? Agree? Just 2-3 minutes of gyan and then we start. Be selfish in acquiring knowledge. Be selfless in giving knowledge. I keep on telling this in my sessions also. And some of the guys will already agree. If you agree, write down agree. Be selfish in acquiring knowledge. Be selfless in giving knowledge. And that is what we are going to do today. We are going to share whatever knowledge is there with me. I am also not a god. Okay. I will share whatever I know. And with this background, we start. This is the global convergence status. Okay. Let me ask you this. Before 5 years, a particular company in UK, if they want to put, say 100 million pounds in an Indian company, before IFRS or Ind AS getting introduced in India, will they be comfortable in putting that money? If you are preparing your financial as per the mundane Indian GAAP, whatever you used to make, okay, in your CA syllabus, whatever we have studied in the past, and if you make the financial based on that, will the UK investor put money? Will he be comfortable in putting money? Let me start with that. Before Ind AS era, before IFRS era, there is an investor from UK. He is wanting to put 100 million in your company. You are giving in Indian GAAP financials. Will he put money? No. All of you say no. Ravi is not sure. That's fine. Absolutely. That's absolutely fine. Let us understand the real reason behind that, right? A UK investor, when he comes into India, if you give a routine, mundane Indian GAAP financials, what will he interpret out of it? Today, in today's day and age, after Ind AS and IFRS has got introduced across the globe, there is only one set of financial statement which is accepted. You agree or you don't agree, it is IFRS. And this is basically the global convergence status where 120 plus countries are already live on IFRS. Okay, there are quite a few countries. There are quite a few countries like Japan who is managing their own local GAAP. There is US who is our big brother and they will not implement IFRS so easily. They are on US GAAP and we follow our traditional IFRS in the form of Ind AS. That is what we did. We converged. Okay, you talk about APEC, you talk about Middle East, you talk about Europe, you talk about, Swedish countries, you talk about any country. Okay, across the globe, IFRS is an acceptable accounting policy to maintain uniformity, right? Just look at these numbers. This statistics is very clear. Yes, China and Japan is also on IFRS. Okay, it is their local GAAP. Singapore is known as SFRS, right? If you talk from an FDI perspective, foreign direct investment, in 2013 it was 28 billion, in 2015 it was 44 billion, and in 2019 it is 50.6 billion in India in terms of dollars. What does the statistic mean? What does the statistic mean? Apart from claiming that after BJP government has come, the FDI has increased. Apart from that, I don't want to get into political discussion. I'm not a person who favors any party. Okay, tell me, what does this slide mean in terms of your finance knowledge? What does it mean? What does this increasing trend signify? What does it signify to all of you? There is a mixed variety of people today. There are freshers, CA freshers, there are CA articles, there are CFOs, there are controllers, there are shared services guys, there are payroll accountants, there are finance controllers, global finance controllers, tax individuals, tax practitioners, chartered accountants practitioners. There are many people. It is relevant for everyone. People are really interested in India. Yes, a more trusted accounting system, very good. Uniform policies, global village, good. Easing of restriction, very good. Indian economy is strong. It signifies that after Ind AS and IFRS has got introduced, the investors have got more faith in the financial system of India. Investors have got more faith in the financial system of India. You agree, you don't agree? Yes, Ashok, I know. Lot of opportunities for IFRS in India, yes. You agree? That means the investors have got more faith in the financial system of India. Okay, that is what it means. This is all the companies having net worth of 500 crores or more got covered. In second phase, 250 to 500 crores got covered. In third phase, they covered banks and NBFCs. Banks have been perpetually deferred. For NBFC, still there is a third phase. For the banks, it is perpetually deferred, which means banks are not on IFRS. If you go outside of India, all the countries, IFRS is completely live from a banking perspective. But in India, IFRS is not implemented for banks. Why? Why is IFRS not implemented for banks in India? Let me understand from you. Which is the single largest problem in banks? Which is the single largest problem in banks? Yes, Manish, that is what we are discussing, why banks are deferred. Very good, Dipesh. Which is the single largest problem in banks today? NPA, very good. NPA, very good. 8 November 2016, a very fantastic incident happened in the country of India. And what was that? 8 November 2016, what did happen in India? What happened in India? Demonetization. Very good. Okay, a very general knowledge question to all of you. Demonetization is a successful initiative for India or a failure? Demonetization is a successful initiative or a failure for the government? After that, whenever Modi ji comes on TV, all of us are scared. But was it a successful initiative? We don't want to criticize anyone. We don't want to criticize anyone. Whatever currencies were issued, which was lying as a liability for RBI in the country of India, that same currency probably came 100% or probably more than that. It was successful from certain industry perspective, but from a government perspective, it was not at all successful. But the point, what I want to drive is, immediately after 2 weeks, a big bank a big bank came into existence who wrote off 14,000 crore of NPA. A big bank wrote off 14,000 crore of NPA. Which was that bank? Which was that bank who wrote off 14,000 crores as NPA? Which was that bank? Come on, let me test your general knowledge. No, not PNB. SBI. Absolutely. Santosh has also joined. My friend from Vodafone. He's a vice president in the southern region. Welcome. It was SBI. SBI wrote off 14,000 crore guys as NPA. The accounting for NPA was being done based on incurred loss model, based on the previous accounting standard. And now the standards say that you have to do something known as ECL, expected credit loss, where you have to basically take into consideration the future cash flows and discount that as of today. You have to basically make a provision of the future cash flows. That is what is coming your way in terms of IFRS. Yeah, Balaji, yes, I remember, my friend. You're my friend from TCS, yes. Okay, so as of today, about 10,000 plus corporate groups are already live on Ind AS, and 12,000 plus corporate groups outside of financial services or including financial services are live on Ind AS, right? So CFOs existing in this particular webinar, like Srinivasan V, he is a CFO of one of the largest companies. He would agree to me that after implementation of Ind AS, the life of a CFO, okay, in terms of reporting has deteriorated, but in terms of, acceptance or in terms of comparison has become easy. Srinivasan, do you agree? In terms of comparison to peers, in terms of showing the results, in terms of review, in terms of board review, it is more sensible. But after Ind AS, the reporting has become quite complex and you need a competent team to basically report the financial statement. That is what is coming your way. I hope the CFOs would agree. I have not gone ahead and seen how many CFOs are there, but for that matter, I know Srinivasan is a CFO of one of the largest companies. So, pillars. When I talk about IFRS, yeah, I talk about pillars. Thank you, Srinivasan, for vouching it. What are the pillars of IFRS? The first pillar, what I talk about always, is substance over form. Means, जो दिखता है वो वैसे नहीं है. Okay, for the people who are from the overseas countries, whatever a particular transaction is there, substance is different, form is different. Let me ask you this simple question. In your life, at any point of time, a normal preference share is a debt or an equity? A normal preference share is a debt or an equity. Welcome, Mr. Ramchandra Nilangikar, one of the senior most person in one of the largest companies. Welcome. I am very glad that all of you seniors have provided your blessings to me in my webinar. Really blessed. Some people say debt, some people say equity, debt, equity, debt, equity, debt, equity. Substance over form. In form, always we have learned that a redeemable preference share is in form always a legal equity. Okay, there are different types of instruments, but international standards, IFRS, okay, Samson, I know it is an equity, that is what you have studied always, but international standard says that a preference share, a redeemable preference share, it's not an equity, but it's a debt. If certain liabilities are reclassified from equity to debt, what is the implication on the financials? Yes, Harshit, I completely agree. It depends on the purpose and issue terms. That is the terms of the instrument. But if at all certain instruments are reclassified from an equity to debt, what is the implication? The debt equity ratio significantly increases, as a result of which the credentials, the credibility, the ratios of the company goes for the toss. Zee Entertainment, best example. Yeah, they had some redeemable preference shares, due to which their debt equity ratio adversely got impacted in 2015. And their PAT got impacted by 5.7% almost. The net worth goes down. Absolutely, Srinivasan. Yeah, that's the kind of implication what we are forcing by introduction of IFRS. Guys, I always talk about a simple concept. Every accounting transaction has got a commercial substance. Every accounting transaction has got a commercial substance. How many of you agree to me? Write down agree if you agree. Come on. Every accounting transaction has got a commercial substance. If you agree, write down agree. Everything gets affected by this classification. Absolutely. Credit rating gets affected. Tax saving due to debt interest. Absolutely. Every accounting transaction has got a commercial substance. Please remember, guys. And after today, by heart the statement and try to accept it in your life also. Yeah. Every action has got a financial reaction and every accounting transaction has got a commercial substance. These two are inventions of Contatra. It is not there in any Google. Yeah. Like we have Newton's 3 laws of motion, we also have our 3 laws of finance. Okay. Fair valuation. There is something known as ESOPs to motivate employees. Okay. To motivate people, to retain people, the companies keeps on issuing ESOPs. And they feel that you can keep on issuing ESOPs and there is no accounting implication. ITC Limited, their PAT got adversely impacted by 5.5%. Why? Because fair value accounting is mandatory. A particular ESOP, if the market value is 100 and if you are issuing the shares at say 50, the differential 50 is a notional cost which has to be amortized in your P&L over the vesting period based on fair value. Based on fair value. How many of you feel it's something which is completely new? You have always seen ESOP accounting at book value or you have not accounted for ESOP, but suddenly one fine day under Ind AS and IFRS, if people come to you and say, no, you have to account for ESOP based on fair value accounting, how does it sound to you? Is it logical? Because something which you passed on as a benefit to the employees, you need to account for that. Is it logical? Write down logical. Yes, it is IFRS 2 and Ind AS 102. Absolutely, Arshad. If you find this accounting completely logical, write down logical, because I find this completely logical. If I have passed on certain notional benefit to employees, account for it. Sanjana says logical, Vishal says logical, Arga says logical, good. I do not want your technical knowledge in this webinar. Okay, IFRS is completely logical. It is not theoretical. Let us accept that. IFRS is principle driven, US GAAP is rule driven, and Indian GAAP is maja aata hai, dil chahta hai. No specific literature. You can do whatever you would like to. No criticism against India, but that is what our accounting systems was very weak, and no wonder we have faced so much of scams in the past, and we are facing today also. Okay. Judgment and estimate. We have already seen this. Yes, it is principle driven. Incurred losses versus expected credit losses. SBI wrote almost 14,000 crores, okay, of MSME loans in the last 5 years, and this happened when the demonetization got announced. And it is not possible that immediately after demonetization, within 2 weeks, SBI comes and writes off 14,000 crores. Points to ponder upon. Not for this webinar, but otherwise. Okay. Oh, welcome Ashok Chawla ji. He is also one of the senior most CFOs in India. Thanks a lot for joining. I'm really blessed to have all of you. Now I talk about IFRS impact. Okay. I always, as a finance professional, have an unstructured approach to reporting. Okay. Whenever an auditor comes, I'll make the financial statements, give it to you. After that, auditors will take their own sweet little time. There are long hours of period closure. Okay, we always struggle with practical implementation. We are continuously busy. Yeah. Prashant Kagli, SBI wrote off 14,000 crores based on expected credit loss model. Okay. They wanted to make a provision. They had NPA in their books relating to MSME, and once demonetization happens, immediately they had to write off that 14,000 crores because it was more than 90 days of NPA. And Ind AS is still not applicable to banks. Okay, now a golden question or $1 million question to all of you. Look at this slide. There are 7 problems what I have given. Just write down honestly how many problems you face it in your daily life. 2, 3, all 7. Constant argument with auditors, stagnancy in career, that whenever I go for an interview, people ask that, whether you are IFRS competent or not. Or even the CFOs in this webinar ask that question. Although we don't know IFRS ourselves, but we tend to ask people, are you IFRS competent? Which I would say that it is not wrong, because the expectation of the CFO is very simple. If the organization has to streamline the financial reporting, they need reporting guys, they need IFRS people with IFRS knowledge, US GAAP knowledge, etc. Yeah, Sanjana, just look at the internet connection once. All 7. Okay, Prashant says all 7, Saurabh says all 7, all. Very good. I like the honesty in people. I like the honesty in people. Good, Ashok. I have long hours. I'll just, yes, SOP driven. There are many multinationals, right from Hewlett Packard, okay, to Cognizant, okay, where you will have SOPs and you will only do the reporting from India and you will upload the financial based on the reporting pack, whatever they give, and you will do only the head office reporting. That's all. That's what we do, right? Because of these problems, I just will discuss 2 minutes case study. 2-minute case study with all of you. I was doing financial reporting geometric and my mother used to always call me during the nights and say that, have your food. Okay, did you have your food or not? Okay, did you eat properly? Did you, sleep properly? Because I used to stay in the hotel for the last 10 days. I've seen all of that. I'm one of you. Okay, I'm not doing something extraordinary. Okay, I'm like you. I have seen shared services. I have seen accounts payable, I have seen payroll accounting, I have seen accounts payable, I have seen financial reporting, I have seen business finance, I have seen tax accounting, I have seen M&A, I have seen due diligence, I have reported to the CFO, whatnot, right? Board, stakeholder management, everything I have managed. But during the quarter end, I used to get frustrated and irritated on my mom and my family. Don't call me again and again, I'm in the midst of reporting. How many of you face this challenge on the ground? Tell me honestly. Because of these issues, you are not systematic. You don't take out time. You don't prioritize stuff. You don't acquire knowledge of IFRS, because of which your reporting gets delayed, and ultimately you blame your family and you remove the frustration on them. How many of us go through this? Quarter end, year end, month end, every end you notice this. Okay, let us accept that. Am I right or am I right? Only 3 people accepting this? Unlikely. All of us take out frustration on family, wives, father, mother, brother, children. Am I right or not? It is not their problem. It is not their problem. It's our problem. It's very clearly our problem. We are not systematic. We don't plan our stuff. We fantasize. We fantasize as finance professionals in saying that I am busy. We fantasize in saying that, quarter end, month end, year end, I'm completely tied up. And when, you know what? I used to feel this. I don't know about you. Okay? We'll experience this and I can relate to it. I used to really like it. Okay. Satish, that is very good if you are managing it. I used to like it when people used to say, ye to finance mein, he's a guy from finance, is always busy. I used to enjoy these statements. Today I feel irritated. Because as finance professionals, there is nothing to boast about. If you are putting 15 hours or 16 hours in office, it is our inefficiency. It's our inefficiency. There is nothing to be proud about. We are making bullshit of our own selves. Okay? We are bullshitting our own selves and we are saying that, we are busy professionals. We don't get time for family. I am very busy. If we plan our work systematically, अगर systematically work को plan करेंगे, and if you are able to prioritize your work, if you use template standard reporting, if you learn, if you upgrade yourself, there is not going to be any issue. Let us accept that. Okay, so the impact of IFRS, that is what I see. It is not only within finance function, it is outside of finance function as well. Yeah, it is outside of finance function as well. Let us see that in detail. I always talk about this finance pyramid. Yeah, how does the pyramid get built? How does the pyramid get built? There are players in the down layer who are typically transactional guys, my friends from accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll accounting, GL accounting, etc. Then there are mid-level managers who are typically financial reporting, business finance, M&A, deal acquisitions, etc. They basically are middle-level managers, business finance guys, financial reporting, M&A guys, and then there are CFOs and controllers. Okay, how many of you agree that today IFRS has become relevant at all levels of the pyramid? This pyramid everyone understands? Transactions, mid-level, controllers and CFOs. That is what is the finance pyramid, our own invention. Again, you guys agree that it is a finance pyramid? And how many of you feel that IFRS is relevant at all levels of the pyramid? Write down agree, please. Because at a down level, you need to be aware whatever transactions you do, what is the implication on the larger organization. At the mid level, there is a skill of triangulation what is required. That is when you do a transaction, look at the M&A boss, look at the due diligence, look at the tax impact, look at the ROC impact, look at the SEBI impact, look at everything and then do the transaction. That is what is expected on the middle level. at a senior level, once you go up to the curve, business impact of every accounting transaction. If you keep on issuing financial instruments left, right, and center, the CFO will get questioned that, boss, why is your debt equity ratio going for a toss? Why is your debt equity ratio going for a toss? Srinivas, Arjun, and others will definitely agree to me, your CFOs attending this, that financial reporting is always also playing an important role in explaining businesses to CEOs and outsiders. Yeah, I agree to you. Being in risk assurance also, it is relevant. Okay, so IFRS has become a necessary marketable skill for upward progression within the finance function. Any accounting regulation is applicable starting from the bottom level. Absolutely, Srinivas. So nice of you to say this. Thanks a lot. These are some of the impacts on stakeholders. What I generally cover, it is relevant for the investor relations, which I spoke about. When Srinivasan is going out and explaining the board, the stakeholders, the investors, he needs to understand what is the accounting requirement, how the accounting is being done. Okay, based on that, he has to inform the stakeholders that my PAT is going to come down, my EBITDA is going to go up, blah, blah, blah. Debt covenants and financing. Whenever you take a loan from an overseas country today, the bankers, the investors, the lenders also ask for US GAAP and IFRS compliant financial statements. That, guys, if you need 100 million of credit, 200 million of credit, we need every quarter US GAAP and IFRS financial statements. How many of you agree to me? Even debt covenants and financing requirements are relating to this. You have financial statements requirement. Yes or no? Just type a yes if you agree. Just type a yes if you agree. Even in debt covenants and financing, it is very much relevant. You agree, you don't agree? Absolutely. Okay. Mergers and acquisitions. I'm doing almost 4 transactions, 3 of US and 1 in India. Okay, we completed one. It got announced known as Smokescreen. Okay, it got acquired by Zscaler. It is a news in the US stock exchange. I don't know how many of you tracked it. So we were involved in that transaction as well. Okay, that transaction got over successfully, but in the first round itself, the US investor was very clear. Okay, I will acquire your entity. I need 5 years financials for you in compliance with US GAAP. Only post that I will see the financials on the numbers of this entity. Only post that I will look at the acquisition. That is the precondition what the investors are bringing in. So for M&A also it has become very relevant. And management information. My friends from business finance, MIS and management reporting, how many of you agree that whatever you report today in terms of projections, in terms of budget, in terms of MIS, whatever you report to the board, everything is in compliant to IFRS and US GAAP? My friends from business finance function, agree, don't agree? And the CFOs? Agreed? All your important ratios needs to be explained. All your MIS as per IFRS. All your business finance reports are as per IFRS. Agree, don't agree? Yeah, Ankita, Prashant, Hitesh, my CFO friends. Good, Ashla. Ashla is going to appear for final soon. So definitely all this knowledge is very much relevant for her. Let us look at the impact on business. Okay, let us look at the impact on business. Some beautiful case studies. After this, definitely I'm going to ask you a question that isn't it creative or not? Pay attention, guys. I was teaching leases in one of the classes and we were talking about, the valuation impact of lease accounting, because in lease accounting, the operational leases have got discontinued and we have only finance leases. Finance leases basically increases the asset and the liability. ROU asset gets accounted and lease liability comes into the picture. Now this lease liability, many companies are showing it as a part of borrowings and many companies are showing it as a part of other financial liabilities. So this controller from Quest, okay, he attended my class and we actually argued with each other that it cannot be a borrowing. It can be a borrowing only if it is a capital lease. If it is an operating lease on account of which the lease accounting has got changed, it can be other financial liability. Repercussion of this. He went back to the banker. The banker had reduced the lines of credit of this company. The banker had reduced the lines of credit of this company saying that you have got a new liability in your balance sheet. So I cannot lend you anymore. So basically he cut the line of credit for him. This guy argued that it is not a liability. It was always there. It is not a borrowing. You cannot adjust that. It has to be a other financial liability. You cannot treat it as a short-term borrowing. Isn't it creative? Or this guy who was a controller and he was not even, with an experience of 20-25 years. He's a 30-year-old kid and he was able to argue with the banker and he was able to change the credit lines for his company. Isn't it creative? Write down creative. All of you agree, isn't it creative? And as a CFO, wouldn't you want people like this? Isn't it creative, guys? Where he went back after learning this, and he challenged the bankers and then got his lines of credit changed. Yeah, Ruchi, Hitesh, Shweta, very good. It is absolutely creative. Second, financial instruments. As the listed companies issuing the financial instrument left, right, and center. Okay, one of my clients, optionally convertible redeemable preference shares, they issued. Okay, it's a listed organization. Impact, their debt equity ratio got changed. Okay, there were larger ECL implication and there were valuation related issues. Okay, there were valuation related issues. The compliance cost was more than the cost of managing this. The compliance cost was more because I had to do a fair valuation every quarter because it's a listed company. Okay, so before issuing the instruments, one needs to understand how the classification is going to impact, how the ratios are going to get impacted. Share-based payments, people who are working in MNCs, okay, particularly First Data, Accenture guys, they keep on issuing ESOPs. Employee stock option plan. Okay, fair value accounting is mandatory. Fair value accounting is mandatory for them. Okay, so companies who are having ESOPs, I always share one case study of one of my clients in Pune. Okay, and I'm doing one of the largest IPOs in US also. Let me give you an example about that. The CFO has got an ESOP. And it is the company into group messaging. Shortly, that company will announce its IPO in US. It has raised almost 350 million and termed as the top 20 unicorns in the country. Now you can correlate group messaging, top 20 unicorns. Okay. Now the CFO has got 1 million shares. Can you just estimate what will be the value of that CFO shares? What would be the ESOP value of that CFO? Any guesses? Any fair guesses? 10 crore, 15 crore, 5 crore. Because he was there since the inception of the company in 2006. Okay. The company is issued ESOPs to him. So what should be the value of his ESOPs according to you? Any tentative numbers that you have in mind? Any tentative number? 5 crore, 10 crore, any guesses? 5 crore, okay. Lagao, boli lagao, 10 million, okay. Mitali Sharma says 10 million, Vishal says 5 crores. Any other guesses? Prashant, Srinivas and other people. ESOP value 100 million, very unlikely. The share value of the CFO is 170 crores. 170 crores. The share value itself 200 crores. You are pretty much close. 170 crores is the share value. Just imagine on account of ESOP. That's the kind of practical implication what we are talking about, and that's the kind of accounting implication we are talking about. IFRS 15. Let us talk about, companies, JK Tyre, Hindware, Ambuja Cements. What are these companies typically? What is the commonality in these companies? Ambuja Cements, Hindware, JK Tyre, etc. What is the commonality? Hindware, JK Tyre, Ambuja Cements. What is the commonality in these companies? Come on, tell me. All these are dealer based. Yeah, they are manufacturing, but they are dealer based. Channel partners. They always have the concept of hidden credit notes. They always have a concept of giving Thailand vacation, Australia vacation, Bangkok vacation, Pattaya vacation. Correct? They offer a lot of these vacations to the dealers. These dealers. Now, these people used to have hidden credit notes. These people used to have variable consideration. All this nonsense needs to stop. And IFRS 15 says that this distributor network related incentives, whatever you give, you have to estimate on day one and you have to account for it on day one as net of revenues. Is it logical? Yes or no? If it is logical, write down logical. This is very much logical. Add-ons, all add-ons needs to be accounted from day one. Is it logical? Yes or no? Is it logical? Yes or no? Last business level implication. I have one client which is into pharmaceutical company, and the company is in Thailand. Okay, it is one of the largest companies. They were not comfortable in sharing the name. By giving the example, they had this money parked in many countries, and they wanted to bring that money back to Thailand. The moment they bring this money back to Thailand, what is the tax implication? You will have withholding taxes, you will have dividend taxes in some countries. Okay. So those are known as undistributed profits. So international standards say when those money are going to be repatriated back to the Thailand country, you have to pay tax. You have to create that deferred tax as of today. Whatever reserves are lying in the subsidiary companies, whatever money you are going to repatriate back to Thailand, you have to basically record deferred tax on that based on balance sheet approach. Isn't it logical, guys? Some reserves which is lying in subsidiary, that is not the true value, so net it off against deferred tax because you are going to pay taxes in future. Isn't it logical? Yes or no? Come on. Isn't it logical? Yes or no? Isn't it logical? It's absolutely logical. Absolutely logical. Some taxes what you are going to pay in future, you are basically trying to give, record deferred tax as of today. Deferred tax on undistributed profits. Okay. Now, I wanted to test the waters on my own. That people are saying that it is so complex, it is so complex. So what I did, we have a network of CFOs with whom we interacted. Okay. We interviewed about 100 plus CFOs and we tried to understand their set of challenges. So different CFOs gave us different feedback based on which we summarized our version. Many CFOs admitted that they started the process very late of the Ind AS adoption and IFRS transition. They underestimated the time, skill, efforts which have Ind AS implications. They tried to quick fix certain problems, but ultimately they were not able to untangle. System changes. If I talk about, say, ECL, if I talk about lease accounting, if I talk about fixed assets, can all of it be done on Excel? Can all of it, fair value accounting, etc., can it be done on Excel perpetually? Or does it make sense to introduce a system? When Ind AS got introduced, all these accounting challenges, the CFOs never envisaged, so they did not anticipate the need for the systems. Today, if you ask me, I have my own tool for lease accounting. I have my own tool for fixed assets. I have my own tool for lease accounting. I have my own tool for fixed assets. So I give it to companies. So they find it appropriate to do it in the system. Excel is Brahmastra for all of us. But Karna also knew Brahmastra, but he was not able to use it when he needed the most. Do you know the story of Karna? Yes or no? Karna and Brahmastra. Yeah? He was not able to use that weapon when it was needed the most in the war against Arjuna. Yes or no? So, Excel pe bharosa kam kijiye. Excel is non-reliable. Okay, although it is a Brahmastra, Karna was also not able to use it. You will also face the problem one day. Okay, don't go by my style, but my examples are very much practical. Okay, you forget when it is needed the most. Okay. How many of you agree that a skilled finance function, a skilled finance team with the appropriate knowledge can be a great asset to the management? Okay, pandemic came, pandemic went. Okay. COVID came, COVID went, and really a large amount of grief from my side to all the families who have lost their dear ones, including mine. I lost my own relative. Okay. But what was constant? Constant was finance function. Constant was finance function. Bloody, my month-end reporting, my quarter-end reporting, my annual reporting did not get jeopardized. All of us gave our 200% for the company still. You guys agree or don't agree? That's the reason a skilled finance function is always an asset to the company. Ratio changes we have already seen. What are the kind of implications which are there? Comparative data, where whatever changes I have to do, obviously the comparative data has to be prepared, which is a challenging task. There were certain other issues as well. Some companies are coming out with IPOs. They are not familiar that how many years of financial statement needs to be given. Classification of financial instruments is a challenge. If you reclassify something from equity to debt, your debt equity ratios goes for a toss. Yeah, some people are giving termination benefits for which the provision needs to be made from day one on account of pandemic. Several contracts are getting cancelled. The accounting for that needs to be envisaged. There are asset and goodwill impairment issues. There are going concern issues. There are revenue recognition issues because of this pandemic. How many of you are facing these situations in your daily routine? Practicing CAs, going concern qualification is a major issue. How many of you are facing these issues in your daily life? Write down me, accounting challenges and these set of issues. Write down me. Come on. Good chaos, good Prashant. Prashant says me, KO says me. Good. It can start right from the CA syllabus, what you study, where it is relevant to the CFO reporting the financial numbers. It gets relevant everywhere. That's what we are saying. So what kind of challenges can upskilling in IFRS solve for you? Let us look at it. Okay, what kind of challenges can you actually solve? Geographical upskilling. One of my faculties, Mr. Sarang Thakkar, learned IFRS with me. Okay, and today he is basically a finance controller of one of the largest investment banks in Middle East, which is known as Mubadala. Some of you already know him because he also takes lectures. Okay, because it is not only relevant in India, IFRS is relevant in European countries, it is relevant in Middle East also. And people with IFRS knowledge are always appreciated in any country. Okay, valued for the company, we already saw this case where we saw an example of Ashish Saluja, who was the controller of Quest and who negotiated terms with banks. I suddenly got a message from one of my peer students. This is that message, Krutika Shetty. I wasn't a chartered accountant, but I saw the need to upskill with IFRS capabilities if I wanted my career path to take off. I enrolled for the Deep IFRS program and this helped me to get my dream job at Walt Disney. Suddenly, I felt so happy, and that is the day when I realized that, people are really happy after learning IFRS because just by learning IFRS, they are getting a job. She was working in First Data and she got a job, her dream job in Walt Disney, which is a Hotstar company. Imagine. Understand the business side. Ankit Sharma, my very good friend, was a controller of Hewlett Packard and he learned revenue recognition and the practical aspects of revenue recognition with us because our sessions are not at all theoretical. We shared all the practical scenarios and he got the global accounting of HP component accounting get changed from an IFRS perspective. He was able to do that. That's the kind of business side which is coming into the picture. He was able to change the global accounting, the global SOP on account of revenue from his side, being in India. So it is not always necessary that sitting in India, you cannot do anything. If you're really knowledgeable, you can recommend best global practices to the parent company also. Yeah. Cross-functional capabilities. One of my participants, Prashant Pujari, suddenly messaged me one day and said that I want to do IFRS, but actually I don't want to give exams and all. My management is saying, I want to give you promotion, but you don't know IFRS, so that's the reason I cannot give a promotion because the next level for you is financial reporting head. In order to justify that particular position, a person needs to be IFRS learned or IFRS relevant, or he needs to IFRS compliances thoroughly. And that's the reason he learned. Cross-functional capabilities is very important. You are in M&A, you are in business finance, you are in deal team, you are in tax accounting, you are in GST. Everywhere IFRS is playing an important role. And last example of career opportunities is my very good friend Vipul Patil, who has joined SK Consulting and who left 3D PLM as a controller. This is the kind of opportunity what is coming out, guys. And these are some of the statements what came out. For example, Ankit Sharma, he said that financial reporting is a big ocean with plethora of opportunities. The DIP IFRS program has given me the perfect career direction. That's the kind of, impact it is having on individuals from their business perspective. The statistics, I don't really enjoy in sharing something which is not relevant. There are more than 85,000 job opportunities in India that require IFRS and financial reporting acumen, or the jobs you will be skilled to apply for after developing IFRS skills. Is this a small number? Any of you have any doubt that after learning IFRS, you will not be able to scale in your career, or you will not get the relevant opportunity. If any one of you, have certain questions like this, you can always talk to my team, because we have placed almost more than 40 people in the last 2 months having this knowledge. Okay, having this knowledge, and some of which I am going to cover also in the subsequent slide. Okay, career prospects, the finance professionals of tomorrow. Very good. All of you belong to some or the other function of this sort. You agree? Either you will be a part of financial reporting and analysis, or you will be a part of audit and assurance, or you will be a part of tax consultancy, or you will be a part of deal advisory or M&A. You will be a part of business finance, or you will be a part of management accounting, or you will be a part of credit risk department. You will be a part of internal risk and internal control department, or you will be a part of shared services. All of you belong to either of the 9 departments in finance. Yes or no? But what is the commonality? We have tried to carve out the content, and we have tried to make sure you are in assurance, you are in financial planning, you are in tax consulting, you are in business finance, you are in deals, you are in management accounting, you are in credit risk, where ECL models are relevant, you are in internal risk department, you are in shared services, who do only transactions. Everywhere, what is common? Common is IFRS and India's knowledge. It's a no-brainer. Okay, according to me, it's a no-brainer, logically, because it has got an impact across functions. Across functions. I am now going to share 4 practical scenarios for all of your benefits, for all of you to benefit. 4 practical scenarios that are some of the most discussed issues today. Okay, how many of you are ready to answer this? Write down me. Still not over, guys. I still have 40 minutes to bore you. How's the session going? How is the session going? Some new things to learn? Some new things learned today? How is the session going, guys? Yes, many people are responding that they want to understand these 4 questions. How is the session going so far? So good? I always ask this question. How is the Josh? How is the Josh? How is the Josh? Uri. Hi, sir. Hi. You should say hi, sir. That is what we do. Okay? How's the Josh? Hi. Let me see how many of you are really high. End of the session. Okay. Difference between effective tax rate and statutory tax rate. Would the difference between ETR, that is effective tax rate, and statutory tax rate be on account of temporary difference or permanent difference? Come on. It's a rapid fire. Huh? It's a rapid fire. Is it on account of temporary differences or permanent differences? Difference between effective tax rate and statutory tax rate. Thanks, Neha. Come on. Difference between effective tax rate and statutory tax rate is on account of temporary differences. Ankit Podar, my God. Is it on account of temporary differences or permanent differences? All of you are saying temporary differences. Very good. All of you need to attend my sessions. It is very clearly evident. Achla, even you are saying temporary. All of you need to look at my bonus video for this answer. Difference between effective tax rate and statutory tax rate can never be on account of temporary differences. It can always be on account of permanent differences. If your company has got only temporary differences, your ETR and STR will be one and the same. Points to ponder upon. Many chartered accountants are also not able to answer this because deferred tax generally will leave it an option. Okay? Second question. For key employees, is ESOP structuring an important way of fostering company loyalty? Do vesting structures make any difference? Do vesting structures make any difference, or do the vesting structures have impact on PBT year on year? Yes or no? Do vesting structures make any difference? Do these vesting structures have an impact on PBT year on year? Yes or no? I want only yes or no. There is graded vesting, that is cliff vesting. Okay, does it have an impact on the PBT? Yes or no? Some people say yes, some people say no, some people say yes. Very good. All of you are saying a yes. Very good. Open up the bonus material in the form of video and you will get the answer. The answer is yes, definitely it will change. How will you recognize if someone purchased a cooling unit and an AMC at a bundle price of 600? Okay. I'll ask a very simple question. Is there one performance obligation or two performance obligation in this contract? Write down one or two. Write down one or two. I have a cooling unit. I have an AMC. It's a bundle contract. How many performance obligations are there? How many performance obligations are there? Two. Very good. Very good, Barkha. Very good, Mani. Very good, Hitesh. There are two performance obligations in the form of a cooling unit and an AMC. This is the kind of practical implications what come when we learn IFRS, right? This is very practical. Okay, the most pertinent question for the software services industry. The biggest software companies find it difficult to identify the number of distinct performance obligations in bundle contracts like the below. You have a software license, you have installation service, you have an unspecified future updates, you have got a telephone support. How many performance obligations if the installation involves substantially customizing the software for it to integrate with other systems in the user's machine? How many performance obligations are there in this case, guys? 1, 2, 3, 4. Just put a rough guess. If the installation involves substantially customizing the software. So installation is a critical piece for software. Dipesh, very good. 3 POs. What about others? 4. 4. Okay. Very good. Open up the bonus video and you will get the answer. The actual answer has to be 3 because over here the installation is definitely required for the software licenses. Okay. I already asked you this. If you are serious about addressing the challenges we spoke about, you will want to pay attention now. Okay. I want to profile the mindset of finance professionals. I am one amongst you. Okay. Most people, that is me and you, procrastinate and go back to the old ways of learning but not taking action. Some people save pennies on upgrading themselves but don't think about making mistakes worth millions in financial statements and tax positions. Many choose to continue the routine instead of charting their own career path. Only some of us proactively act, sow the seeds and reap the benefits. I was never proactive in my finance career, let me tell you. But let me ask you this question. How many of you are proactive? Just write me or I. How many of us? Yes, Srinivasan, it will be a bundle solution. It is there in the video. You can decode and just see the video. You will get the answer. How many of us are really proactive? Let me ask you this. I have become proactive now. So I am proactive. How many of us are proactive? Pratul is proactive, okay? Ravi Sriram is not proactive. I really appreciate your reward. Anand Iyer says I am proactive. Okay, Hitesh says I am proactive. Welcome, Anand Iyer. Still trying to be. The biggest thing what this pandemic has taught us, the biggest thing what the pandemic has taught us is life is very short. Okay, live for yourself and keep on upgrading yourself with the necessary knowledge is what pandemic has taught me, honestly. So Anand Iyer, welcome. Anand Iyer is one of the senior Emirates director from Dubai. Glad to have all of you. Kishore, I know you are a semi-procrastinator for sure. Okay. I always talk about Abhimanyu's Chakravyu. Okay, this is the Chakravyu of the finance professional. You learn but forget to apply. You apply, forget to review. You review but fail to make an action plan. You plan but fail to act. You act but are not consistent. In Mahabharata, Arjun had the choice to take the revenge from Jayadratha of Abhimanyu's killing. In your real life, you have to take a revenge on yourself if you don't act and if you are not proactive. Okay? So, you fall under which category? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You learn but forget to apply. You apply but forget to review. You review but fail to make an action plan. You plan but fail to act. You act but are not consistent. I fall in 5. I fall in 5th category. What about you guys? Which category are you in? 1. Okay. You learn but forget to apply. Good. Indoli is 4. Priya is 3. Praveen is 1. 4. Eshang is 5. Very good. Very good. Interesting statistics coming out. Very good. $1 billion question. How many of you want to take a control of your career and develop IFRS skills that the industry is looking for? Just write me. How many of you are proactive? How many of you don't want to be like an Abhimanyu who basically gets stuck in the Chakravyuh? How many of you want to take a control of your career and develop IFRS skills that the industry is looking for? Just write down me. Let me see. Me. Okay. I want me. Okay. Many people. Okay, guys, welcome to the Contetra's ecosystem. I'm going to take 10 minutes. To explain this slide. All of you pay attention. Don't miss out anything because it's a complete value system, value creation, what we want to do to the society. I want to just, if at all you guys allow, I want to say one statement. The finance professionals are technically very strong. The key skill, what they lack is articulation. You agree, you don't agree? If you agree, write down agree. The key skill, what they lack is articulation and not technical knowledge. Key skill, what they lack is articulation. Yes or no? Yes or no? Agree? Absolutely agree. Key skill lacking is articulation. We are technically very strong, stronger than any other individual, any other professionals. Whether we are a BCom, whether we are a chartered, whether we are an MBA, we are strong technically, but the key skill that is lacking is articulation. Yeah. So this is what we bring to the table. This is the value proposition what we have. We start with a journey where once a particular participant comes inside the ecosystem of Contetra, we give them something known as a data sheet. Okay, we give them something like a data sheet in order for them to fill the data sheet, giving their information so that we can completely customize the course relevant for them. Okay, they become a part of the overall WhatsApp community, right? They get 60 hours of interactive live sessions, which we do only over weekend. 60 hours of interactive in-depth live sessions where we talk only case studies, exam point of view, practical orientation, what is relevant to the industry. That's all we discuss. In 6 hours, it is completely intense. People who have already attended my sessions already know, like Ashok and all, and you can vouch for that. You get 1 year access. For unlimited views and the live sessions. For example, if you enroll for the July batch, you can attend. We do 4 batches in a year. If you miss out any one session in a particular batch, you can attend that particular session in the next batch. There is no problem at all. Okay? And you get 1 year access for unlimited views of the entire recorded series. You have a 60 hours of live interaction. You have a 30 hours of recorded session of small standards like EPS, like interim financial statements, etc. And you get a bonus. Thanks, Kishore. You get a bonus in the form of an IFRS Acumen, which is for 15 hours. How many of you believe that strengthening the basic is a very important step? How many of you believe that strengthening the basics is the first step towards learning anything? Strengthening the basics is the key step in learning any aspect. Yes or no? Yes or no? So, in order to strengthen the basics, we have introduced a unique 15-hour journey called IFRS Acumen, which you will get as a first step when you enroll for DIP IFRS. It is free. 15 hours of free Acumen to strengthen your basics as a part of your DIP IFRS syllabus, where you can strengthen your basics, strengthen your IFRS concepts completely as a first step. You get 60 hours of live sessions. You get 30 hours of recorded sessions as well. And for all these 105 hours, you get 1 year access, which is unlimited. Okay? You get 1 year access for unlimited views and live sessions of 2021. You can attend any of the sessions in any of the batches in the next 1 year when you enroll. We give a comprehensive physical notes and the question bank. Again, I would like to say that what is the differentiator? The differentiator is very simple. It is completely chart and graphs oriented, which you like to study. Do you like to study based on the text, or you'd like to study in the graphical form? Be very honest. You like to study in the text form or charts and graphical form? I like to see charts, I like to see graphs, I like to see, diagrams. That basically ensures that something is definitely stuck in my mind permanently. What do you like? A text or a chart or graphs? Yeah, pictorial. Pictorial is basically easy to grasp. So it's a combination of both. That's the kind of differentiator. We have relevant case studies which are relevant for CFOs also. All our sessions are very engaging. We do role plays, we do case studies in the class. We are the only set of individuals or the set of professionals who are giving workable templates as a part of our course. You will get IFRS workable templates, okay, as a part of your course, which you can go ahead and implement in your company for sure. We give interview preparatory guidelines, okay, FAQs which are relevant for the interviews, okay, and the illustrated handbooks. As a part of this course, you can develop a peer relationship, okay, and there is a lot of cross-industry connects also. I have more than 500 alumni now. They talk to each other independent of me today, and I proudly say that. They talk to each other independent of me. They share opportunities with each other as well. We are a registered learning partner to ACCA. We are a registered learning partner to ACCA, on account of which you get 5,000 to 8,000 rupees kind of a discount, okay, based on the pricing what the ACCA has on account of fees. They keep on changing their fees, but somewhere between 5,000 to 8,000 is the exam fee discount what we get. We cover in detail tips and tricks to pass the exam with a great score. All our alumni take this session. Ashok and others know it already. Chandrasekhar is also there. I had called Manish, who is the highest scorer. He had scored 87 out of 100. Okay. They share how to prepare for an exam. Our professors teach how to prepare for an exam, what to study, what not to study. We take mock exams, which is completely CBA based, computer based exams. Okay. And we give specific sessions with toppers as well. We develop a completely customized learning journey based on the class profile, tailor-made content, and as I have already told you, we discuss a lot of practical orientation and not theoretical. We also share job opportunities. There is no placement commitment. I'll be very blunt. But as I told you, I have been able to place more than 40 people in the last 2-3 months because the finance recruitment is not going to get over. So we share job opportunities also, and we bring in a lot of practical IFRS insights from top subject matter experts. This is the complete value proposition what one gets once he comes inside the ecosystem of Contetra. Be honest to yourself. Isn't it wonderful? Write down wonderful if you acknowledge this. Isn't it wonderful? Under one umbrella, you get everything. Notes, 60 hours of recording, 1 year access, practical orientation, case studies, books, customized learning, registered learning partner benefit. You get everything. Isn't it wonderful? Yes or no? Yes or no? Come on. Let me at least see. Wonderful? Yes? Yes, Piyush. It is very much relevant for the practicing chartered accountants. 50% of my batch is almost practicing chartered accountants only as of today. Because they can take new work. It is very much relevant in their tax practice. It is very much relevant in their FEMA practice as well. Let me move forward. This is the exam pattern. It's a 100-mark question paper. So Piyush, to answer to your question, definitely it is relevant for all the practicing chartered accountants. Yeah, and we would have trained more than 200 practicing chartered accountants in India by now. Very much relevant for CMA, Vishal, if you are in the finance department in some form. Okay, it's total an 100-mark question paper. Okay, 3.5 hours exam, computer-based exam. The pass mark is 50%. This is the exam pattern, 100 marks question. Okay, and you have 3.5 hours kind of an exam, computer-based exam. This was the value proposition what we spoke. Who is this DIP IFRS program for? Okay, who is this DIP IFRS program for? Who wants to upskill? If staying relevant with changing times is a priority for you, and if you do not want to be stagnant in your career, seeking practical insights, the practical learning is just as important to you as academic learning. Our program is right for you. Real business case studies plus examples. How many of you fall in the first two category? Write down me. How many of you fall in the first two category? Write on me. I fall in the first two category for sure. How many of you fall in the first two category? We still have 20 minutes to get bored. Me, yes, very good, very good, very good. This program or this course is not for graduates who have less than 2 years of work experience. Okay, this program is not at all there for graduates with 2 years of work experience. Okay, and people who are from the other fraternities like science or something who are not having relevant work experience of 2 years, but there is a unique offering for you in the form of IFRS Acumen, which is that 15-hour kind of a program which you can start to basically strengthen your basics. That is something which is there for a graduate which does not qualify for a DIP IFRS exam, who is not having an experience of 2 years and more. Yeah. So this is the Acumen related details for people. This is only for people who are not eligible for DIP IFRS. People who are eligible for IFRS or DIP IFRS need not look at this. Yeah. Piyush, definitely you can call me and I'll explain it to you. Okay, not in this forum. Okay, because a lot of chartered accountants have started getting work after attending this particular training. So for the self-starters, okay, this Acumen session will have a 15 hours of video recording and it is only 2,700 plus GST. But this is only for people who do not have any IFRS knowledge and who wants to have some financial reporting acumen, okay, and who do not qualify for diploma in IFRS. Yeah, Ravi, definitely we will help you end to end. Yes, Arga, if you are a qualified cost accountant, it is very much relevant for you. It is very much eligible. Okay, and you are very much eligible. Anand, you can definitely ask a question. Let me complete my logical proposition. Yes, Ravi Sriram. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. So this Acumen is only for people who are not eligible for diploma in IFRS, but people who enroll for diploma in IFRS and who are eligible, this IFRS Acumen comes to them for free as a bonus material for them. Yeah. Amit, you can speak to Tosif. Let me just complete. These are the generic FAQs what we keep on getting. That will this help me in audits or answering to the senior management? Yes, of course, you are being proactive as compared to others. Okay, so it is very much relevant for you. You will end up not fighting with the client. You will end up doing things on your own. Yeah, IFRS and Ind AS is more or less one and the same. Okay, more or less one and the same. For continuous practice, yes, Anand, you can definitely use that. Some people tell me that honestly, my bandwidth is really choked and I will not have the time. We are mindful of this, guys, and that's the reason our sessions are only on weekends and that too 10 to 4. Okay, why can't I just read upon specific issues or IFRS topics online? I have a bundle of content online, but to take the relevant content and to basically take only the relevant material is a key, and to understand the business implication of that is a key, and that's the reason you need to be a part of this. Okay. Many people come to me and say that, I want to do the full-fledged ACCA, then why are you recommending DIP IFRS? This is a clear value difference what I want to bring in. ACCA is predominantly for all the undergraduates. Okay, there are 3 levels. In ACCA, there are 14 exams. There is no work experience required. And total time to complete is 3 years. And total cost to complete is 3.5 lakhs. Whereas DIP IFR, okay, yes, 60 hours and 15 hours for continuous practices for any other memberships. It cannot be taken as a CPE, Anand. For other memberships, it is allowed. DIP IFR is only one exam. You must have the relevant work experience of 2 years plus. Time to complete is only 6 months if you continuously practice and if you continuously study. Total cost, including examination fees, is only 30,000, including the fees plus the exam fees. And average annual salary once you pass out the diploma in IFRS is somewhere between 8 to 15 lakhs. In case of ACCA, since you are a fresher, it is only 7 to 9 lakhs. Yeah, this is the typical difference between ACCA and DIP IFRS, what we keep on getting as a set of questions. These are some of our success stories. Look at this. Some people really become emotional. Some of you are already there. We get testimonials where people say that, after attending your session, we feel like telling home. Yes, Manish Mata, you're eligible. very much. These are some of the testimonials, guys. Just go through it. And these are the two critical positions what we have placed. Manish Chadwani was the highest scorer. He has been appointed as a global finance controller of 3D PLM. Okay. And he was working in Tata Communications. Sunil Haladi, he was working in a small firm and he transformed himself to become the controller of Decision Minds, which is one of our clients. That's the kind of value add what we would like to do to people. Okay. And these are some of the testimonials. It is evident for yourself. These people, for example, selected in SLK, he got 33% hike. Mayur Bajaj, he was ex-CFO Jio Savan. He says it was a wonderful experience refreshing IFRS with Contetra. Big thanks to Sai, sir, and his entire faculty for the same. Yes, Pradeep, the answer to your question is yes. And very important, even people who feel that, DIP IFRS can be done by chartered accountant, it's a myth. It is absolutely wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Majority of the testimonials that we have passed out are non-chartered accountants. Okay, I have trained more than 150 people in First Data. Out of that, 80% of the people are non-chartered accountants. So don't be under the myth that it is not relevant for non-chartered accountants. You can very well pass. Sunil Haldi is not a chartered accountant and he is placed as a controller in one of the largest IT companies in Bangalore. These are some of the testimonials, guys. All our success stories. And this is the latest March batch. Very interesting session. Good to know all my classmates. Do keep in touch. This is the kind of testimonials what we keep on getting. This is the difference. IFRS acumen is basically for BCom freshers. CA professionals who want IFRS overview. Typically, you are doing the articleship. Managers who need an IFRS refresher. Okay, we very well have some CFOs or someone coming to us that I have already done my diploma in IFRS, but I want to only refresh my knowledge on IFRS. For them, IFRS acumen is very much relevant. Qualified CAs and even people who are pursuing the articleship, graduates who are having 2+ years of experience or any other finance professional having 2 years of work experience, DIP IFRS is very much relevant for you. Okay, IFRS acumen is 2,700 plus GST. Diploma in IFRS is 105 hours. Exams are held in December and June. IFRS acumen is only a certificate course. Diploma in IFRS is a qualification. I always prefer to go for the qualification rather than a certificate course if I am eligible. And you guys have access to learning platform for 2 exam cycles. You can attend any of the sessions in the 4 sessions of the year. Okay. And total cost is 15,000 of our fees plus ACCA fees of 13,000 is equal to 28,000. Only for our webinar participants, this is the kind of pricing what we have. 1 day special price. We were doing 18,000 plus GST, but now we are saying 15,000 including GST. 15,000 including GST. I would request all of you to grab the offer and I would request the moderator to play the testimonial video once. I would request the moderator to play the testimonial video once and roll out the offer post that. Let me see how many of us are proactive in deciding and taking the webinar benefit today itself. It is only a benefit for 2 days.
Earlier we were focusing more on the disclosure perspective, but now after learning so much of technical knowledge, we start applying directly.
I attended all the classes sincerely with a self-study of just 3 to 4 days. I cracked the exam with a very good score of 61 marks.
I had appeared in December 2019 for diploma in IFRS and I cleared it in the very first attempt, and thanks to Contetra Universal for that.
Now I have completed this diploma IFRS course from Contetra, and because of this course I have recommended few accounting treatment differently also in my organization, and my organization has accepted this as well.
I joined their training of IFRS in India. It helps me to gain a lot of practical knowledge, a lot of practical insights of IFRS in India. I applied these knowledge into my company as well.
The best thing about the Contetra is the faculty and support you get from the people.
Faculties come industry expert at Contetra.
That they not only tell you about the theoretical part, but they also help you in practical areas and the practical difficulties you face while implementing IndAS or IFRS and how should you deal with it.
They also train you regarding the real life examples and the challenges that are faced by industry.
The technical knowledge will definitely help you to pass the exam, but at the same time they also teach you how to apply things directly in your workplace.
Special thanks to Mr. Ramanujan, who is also a CFO of Contetra.
and they are available at any time whenever you need them to guide you, and they help you in any matter you need.
So, if you're looking for a diploma IFRS course, I would highly recommend you to join Contractra. I mean, definitely you will not be disappointed.
I would really recommend this training program to my colleagues, to my teammates.
So I would recommend you to join Contractra whenever you wish to pursue DIP IFRS. Thank you so much.
Guys, HP is one of the largest MNC. Okay. Hindware is one of the listed companies. KPMG is a big four brand. I do not want to give any more testimonials. Okay. Ankita, even if you're appearing for the exams in December 21, we have one more batch starting in September. You can pay the fees in that batch also. But it is only a webinar offer. This offer might be over by end of day tomorrow. So let me see how many of you are basically going to take an action and how many of you are proactive to take an action. I would request the moderator to roll out the offer. How many of you are interested and going to pay the fees? Ankita, it is absolutely okay. Even if you are going to appear in December, you can enroll and start the class in September. Even if you are appearing Masters in Finance, Pradeep, any fraternity of finance, this IFRS is relevant, whether you investment banking, whether you do M&A, whether you do any deal, it is relevant for you. So let me see how many of you are proactive and going to pay the fees. The link has been shared. How many of you are proactive? Let me see. And did you find the necessary value add as a part of the session? How did you like how did you find the session? Yes, Kalyan, you can enroll now. Yes, Varun, you can speak to Tausif and Amar. You can enroll now and appear for December 21. That is absolutely fine. Ravi. Thanks, Anand. Thanks, Ashok, for vouching us. Would be very interesting in a whole perspective about finance will change. Oh, wow. So nice of you, Ashok. Yes, Ramchandra, you can definitely speak to Tausif. He's available. Yes, Vishal, absolutely. You can pay the fee same tomorrow and appear for December 21. This offer is going to be valid only for today and tomorrow. Offer is already rolled out. It's an opportunity to upskill yourself. It's an opportunity to take maximum benefits. Yes, you can connect either late today or tomorrow. Absolutely, Prashant. The offer is there till tomorrow, end of the day. Thanks, Kishore, for vouching us. Anshul, doesn't matter. You're the only one who has put a comment like this. Absolutely fine. Yes, Ravi, my team will connect with you for sure. Yes, Manish, my team will connect with you for sure. Take an opportunity, guys, and I would request all of you to upskill yourself. This number is actually a spent of probably 1 to 2 month kind of a weekend. Yeah, that's the kind of spend we are talking about, and it is going to scale your career to the next level. I've already given several instances, several examples. People who still feel that they would want to wait and want to sit as backbenchers and try to evaluate when will we get an opportunity in future, can still sit. People who are proactive enough can definitely take an action and invest in yourself right today. Okay, make an investment of this amount and try to scale your career to the next level. I would welcome all of you on board. Sure, Srinivasan. Anyone who would like to invest today or would like to enroll today can absolutely enroll as a part of this link. Thanks, Ravi Srijam. Thanks a lot. Rajesh, yes, my team will connect with you. Anyone who is having all the understanding and wants to pay right now? Prashant, this is a very valid question. Very valid question. It is very much relevant. Even if you don't take an exam, you get the practical aspects of IFRS which you can apply in your daily life, and you can at least tell in your career that I know IFRS. Otherwise, you will go absolutely blank every time when you do the practical orientation of IFRS or fin reporting. Every aspect of finance requires the knowledge of IFRS. It's very clear, Prashant. Even if you don't appear for the exam, it is 1000% relevant for you. Does that answer your question? Out of 100%, 50% of our students don't appear for the exam because they want to learn IFRS independently. Yeah, exam is not their only perspective, but we encourage people to give exams so that they get a professional qualification with them. Thanks, Ankita. Thanks a lot. Always welcome. I have been able to complete it on time. The session is open for the Q&A. The session is open for the Q&A and you can ask as many questions as possible. Bye-bye, my team is available. Just answering your question, Anand. It is 60 hours of live session, 30 hours of recorded session and 50 hours of Acumen. What makes it 105 hours, Anand? Okay, thanks a lot, guys. I'll have to log off to get into another set of jobs for me. Thank you. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure having all of you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thank you.